Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Bonnie Lynn and I have a full face on right now of alternative products, which basically means I have everything where it's not supposed to be. Like I have blush on my lips, I have eyeshadow as blush, I have bronzer on my eyes, I have eyeshadow as bronzer, and I'm even using highlight as a foundation. Which is kind of weird, I know, but I was thinking that that's really a great way to pan products if you are part of the Project Pan community, because you know you can use an eyeshadow up as a bronzer much faster than you can use it as an eyeshadow, and especially if you have items in your collection that you don't use very often. Well, if you can repurpose those, that's great. I'm going to link that video down below in case you want to see what all I applied and where I applied it, just to kind of give you some ideas of different ways to use your makeup and not necessarily use it in traditional ways. But that really got me thinking about project panning in general. And I have been thinking about project panning for a few weeks now, quite a bit, kind of trying to figure out where I fit into that community. Even if I do fit into that community, I did believe I do fit into that community. I am doing a palette project with my Lorac Mega Pro 4 where I'm trying to do 52 looks using that palette, and that really is just to help anybody who's trying to pan that palette to come up with different ideas on how they can use that palette. But I decided that I wanted to just do a video that kind of outlined maybe my philosophy on panning. I've been watching a lot of panning videos lately. There are a lot of really wonderful, valid reasons for panning, in my opinion. You know, one of the big reasons that people pan, I think, is just to save money. It makes you focus on the products that are in your collection and using those up and just enjoying them. At the same time, that discourages you from buying new products because it makes you realize it takes a long time to use a product, a very long time. And so that can help discourage you from spending money that maybe you shouldn't be spending, which is a very great, valid reason, in my opinion, to pan. Some people also have just really large collections and they want to pare that collection down and they want it to be a little more curated. And so they don't want to just go and throw everything away. And so they want to try to use those products up before they buy new products. Some people even have the one in, one out. So you have to use up a product before you can bring another product into your collection. And I think that's great as well. Some people are makeup addicts. They have a huge collection and they can't stop buying because they're just addicted to that rush of purchasing new makeup. A lot of times they will get into the Project Pan community as a way to try to stop purchasing so much. They will replace their addiction to purchasing makeup and they'll turn that over into the panning process. So they'll become addicted to panning. I don't know if that's healthy or not. I do know that it's healthier than spending money that you don't have. So if you were addicted to buying makeup and you turn that into an addiction to panning that makeup, well, you're not spending anymore. And so it's a healthier addiction, you know, than purchasing if you don't have the money to purchase. So it is kind of replacing one addiction with another. I'm not really 100% sure how I feel about that. I don't like I'm addicted to coffee and that's a healthier addiction than alcohol. So everybody pans for different reasons, and there's no wrong reason to pan. They're all very valid reasons, and we're all very different individuals, and the reasons that we pan vary as much as our skin tones and the type of skin that we have. But I have noticed something with my own panning, and it's kind of shaping my panning philosophy, I guess you could say. I am currently trying to pan boudoir eyes. I've had this palette for a few years, and I enjoy it very much, and I don't plan on completely panning this. I would just like to see pan on a few of these colors. If I did that, then I feel like I've made progress and I've really gotten use out of this and just enjoyed this palette. Well, a couple of days ago, I was trying to decide what palette I was going to wear for that day, and I really wanted to use my Laura Geller palette. I really enjoy this palette. It's got some beautiful rose colors in it, and it just looks really pretty on my eye, but I thought I shouldn't use this palette. Even though I want to use it, even though using it would bring me joy, I shouldn't use it because I'm trying to pan this palette, and I haven't used this palette a whole lot, and so I should use this palette instead. And that just was kind of a little bit of a internal struggle with me. Which one do I use? Do I use this just because I'm trying to pan it even though I'm not in the mood to use it? Or do I use this one because this one will bring me more joy and I'm really wanting to use that today? That dilemma made me think back to a video that I watched a couple of weeks ago, and it was a YouTuber and she does a lot of panning. she decided to show her entire collection of eyeshadow palettes and makeup, just everything that she owned. She was very focused on just panning a few palettes, 3 or 4 palettes. She was using those, rotating them, using them every day, really focused on those palettes. Well, she showed her collection of eyeshadow palettes. She had, whatever your collection is, I'm not judging you at all. If you have 100, 200 palettes, that's great. I think I maybe have 30 palettes or so right now. Maybe not even that many, but I have quite a few palettes. And she probably had 5 times the number of palettes as I did, which was fine. I mean, I loved it. She was showing everything that she had and opening them and letting everyone see her palettes. They were beautiful. I just sat there and thought, oh, you are so lucky. You have these beautiful palettes. I wish I had all those palettes that you have. And then she did a confession where she said that she doesn't use any of the palettes except for the ones that she's panning. So here she is sitting with 100 palettes at least, beautiful, gorgeous palettes that I'm like, I would give anything to use those palettes. And she wasn't touching them because she was very focused on her panning. And if she didn't focus on her panning, well then, obviously she wasn't going to make any progress. But it just got me to thinking, what is she sacrificing by not using those palettes? When I saw that, it made me really stop and think about my own panning, because I love eyeshadows. One of my big joys in life is curating and picking an eyeshadow palette, purchasing that eyeshadow palette, going home and swatching that eyeshadow palette, putting that first look on my eye, putting that second look on my eye, opening that palette up and just looking at all those beautiful colors and thinking of all the wonderful things I can do with it. That brings me so much joy. And if I am panning, then I am not experiencing that joy. When I saw with the video from the panner, I thought she could be getting so much joy out of those palettes, but she's so focused on panning these 3 or 4 palettes that she's using that she has just shoved those into a back room and she doesn't even look at them and she doesn't even use them. And that just made me really sad. And maybe not to her, but she's not me. So to her, she may not think that eyeshadow palettes are just whatever. She may not really care as much about eyeshadow palettes as I do. And so for her to shove all those into a room and not think about them may be fine. But for me, I was like, I would never want to do that, because for me personally, I love eyeshadow too much and I love using different palettes. And so that made me realize that maybe when I am panning, there are certain things that I really shouldn't pan. Because if I really focus on panning those, then I'm missing out on other eyeshadow palettes in my collection that bring me joy. And part of the whole reason for me doing makeup is because it makes me happy. It's kind of a form of self-care. And I love using different colors and I love trying out new eye looks. And I can't do that if I'm using the same palette over and over and over again. So I have decided that for my philosophy, there are certain things that I am not going to be as focused on panning. I am still going to keep like this in my panning list. And whenever I'm not sure what eyeshadow palette I want to use and I don't really care what I use for the day, I'm going to grab this one. This will be my go-to palette. But if I really have this palette and I'm dying to use it, like I was dying to use this one, well, you know what? This made me happy to use it that day. And this is the one that I chose to use that day. And I was very, very happy that I chose this because the eye look was beautiful and I felt pretty and I enjoyed applying it. Whereas if I had used this one, which I'm trying to pan, I probably would have just begrudgingly put it on my eye and been like, well, this sucks. I want to be using this one. There are 2 products that I will not be panning, and that is eyeshadow palettes and then highlighters, because I'm the same way with highlighters. I love curating highlighters. I love going and swatching highlighters and finding a beautiful one and bringing it home. And I love layering highlighters. I just love highlighters. And so I don't want to limit myself to using one highlighter every single day just so I can use it up, because that is a product that brings me so much joy in my life. And I don't want to miss out on that joy because I'm panning. And these may be different for everybody. The thing that brings you the most joy may be lipstick, it may be blush, but I feel like when we love makeup, there's just certain products that we love to use, and that maybe we should be a little bit more liberal when it comes to panning those products, just so we don't feel like we are stuck using one item just so we can see that pan. Is it really that important? Do you really want to take away that joy in your life just so you can see that pan? And there's certain things that I have no problem panning. These are items that I enjoy, but they don't bring me as much joy. And those things are like lipstick. My goal really for lipstick, I've panned a million lipsticks, by the way. I mean, dozens and dozens of lipsticks. And lipsticks are hard to pan, but I pan them because I find a color I like and I stick with it. And really my goal is just to have a color of lipstick to go with all the different eye looks that I do. Panning foundation, bronzer, contour, hand cream, face powder, concealer, color correctors, blushes, body wash, cleanser, primer. Panning all those things to me is what I want to focus on, just so my collection isn't cluttered. But what I'm not going to focus on, just for me, you may be totally different, but for me, I won't be focusing so much on panning eyeshadow palettes and highlighters. Like I said, I am going to keep this in my panning project because I've never panned an eyeshadow before, and I think I can do it because I really love this and I do enjoy wearing it. It's just some days I'm craving something else. And on those days that I'm craving to wear something else, I don't want to ignore my other palettes. I don't want to shove my other palettes in a room and pretend they don't exist, just because I'm trying to pan this. I do plan by the end of the year to hit pan on a few of these, and I don't know if I'd say I'm getting close, but I'm better off than I was if I wasn't trying to pan this. I guess what I wanted to do this video was because I want to encourage everyone to use and pan your makeup and your beauty products in a way that brings you the most joy. So I don't recommend doing what everybody else is doing. Like if everybody is panning eyeshadow palettes, but you love eyeshadow palettes and you have 20 of them and you want to use them all, don't pan an eyeshadow palette. Just use all of your eyeshadow palettes across the board and love on them. If you are a bronzer person and you love bronzers and you have a bronzer for every day of the week, don't pan bronzers. Even if you see everybody else panning bronzers, that brings you joy. So just be happy that that brings you joy and don't pan that. If you add new ones to your collection, that's fine. Use them, love them, because that brings you happiness. So I guess what I'm saying is just kind of take a moment, figure out what makes sense in your life. And so even though I would love to pan an eyeshadow palette and I see everybody else doing it and I think it looks awesome and I love watching those videos so much, it's just not realistic for me. That's totally fine because I have been panning right and left on everything else in my collection, and I'm pretty proud actually of how much I have moved through my collection in like the last 3 months since I discovered Project Panning. And a lot of this stuff is face washes that I had like a third of it left. Well, I used that up. Or body cream, I had a third of it left. I used it up. Primers and things like that. And so I have noticed that my space is getting less cluttered because I'm panning those things. But something that's not going to get less cluttered are my eyeshadow palettes, and that's just because I love them too much and they bring me too much joy. So just take a moment, figure out what works for you and move forward with that, and don't feel like you need to do what everybody else is doing. Everybody has a different philosophy for panning, and this is just my philosophy. It's what works for me. So figure out what works for you and you will be happier moving forward once you know that. I just wanted to do this quick little video, and I want to thank you for watching and thank you for being here with me today. I hope this was helpful in some way. If you have favorite products, I would love for you to let me know what they are in the comments. Love to know, what are things that you probably won't pan because you love them too much and you have a lot of them and you don't want to just focus on one. And I'd also love to know what are things that you are actively working on panning as well. So I just want to thank you for being here with me, and I appreciate your time, and I hope you're having a great day wherever you are. Bye-bye.